Talking back tonight, let's take a look at a few stories that the mainstream media in Australia probably aren't reporting on at the moment with Talking Back tonight regular Nathan Bray. G'day, Nathan.
G'day, Christian. Hello, everybody.
Global warming, the greatest scam in history, claims the founder of the Weather Channel. Are we talking about the great Dick Whittaker here?
This guy isn't as big as Dick Whittaker. Come on. Now, what they're saying is this is actually John Coleman. Now, he actually co-founded the Weather Channel. So he actually shocked academics by insisting the theory of man-made climate change was no longer scientifically credible. So instead what he's saying is there's little evidence for rising global temperatures, and it actually points to a natural phenomenon within a sort of a developing ecosystem, etc. So he says this in this open letter attacking the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC. And he's saying that the ocean, this is what he's getting at, and it's amazing. He's saying the ocean is not rising significantly. He's saying that the polar ice is increasing, not melting away. The polar bears have actually increased dramatically in number. He says that the heat waves have actually diminished, not increased, and that there's an uptick in the number of the strength of storms. So that this uptick hasn't occurred. And the fact is the storms are actually diminishing. So he comes out and says, I have studied this topic seriously for years, and it's become a political and environmental agenda item. But the science he's saying is not valid. And he comes out finally by saying there's been no warming for over 18 years. Well, isn't that interesting? And because the sun is now going in a retrograde cycle, the suggestion is now they're saying we could be going into a mini ice age. How wrong have you got to get it? 1 minute the world is literally going to end, and all these people, there's going to be no snow by 2014 is what a certain presidential candidate made a film about, Al Gore. And the reality is they're now suggesting we're going into a mini ice age. How modelling can get this so wrong.
Well, they always just said, we predicted that something was going to happen. We never said what it was that was going to happen. We just said that something was going to happen. You've got reasonably respectable and high up people on both sides. One saying the science is there, the proof is there. The other saying, no, it's simply not there.
I think what the scientists do is they come up and say there's a real problem and start to show data and figures, etc. Next minute, corporate interests come in and start paying scientists to fudge certain figures. That never comes true. And then you have governments come in and say, well, how can we make money out of that with taxes and things like that and control? And then they start exaggerating things a little bit. And suddenly we're all not focused on the problem, I think, of pollution, right? Yeah. Which is just a major problem. And unfortunately, in our society, that's kind of how things end up.
Yeah. What about this one? The 60 Minutes story last Sunday night. I know it was one that caused a lot of emotion, a lot of anger to a lot of people who saw that around Australia. Talking about respected politicians, men, and part of a depraved pedophile network which has had connections to Australia or does have connections to Australia, even though this particular network might have been born in the UK.
Scary stuff, Christian. It goes all the way to the royal family. Okay, what I'm going to have a look at here is maybe some of the bigger picture. We've been talking about this for a few years, a number of years now, with actual evidence, and people always say, oh, that can't be true. That must be a conspiracy theory, and I think that's fair enough, because the truth is you just don't want it to be true, do you?
Well, now that 60 Minutes are covering it, it must be true.
Exactly, but they've sort of covered just a fraction of it. Yep. Look, I'll start off. Basically, there was this newspaper editor who was handed this startling evidence that Britain's top law enforcement official knew, and this is the thing that disturbs me, they knew there was a VIP pedophile network in Westminster, okay, at the heart of the British government. Now, what happened next in the summer of 1984, that's how far back this goes. It sort of helps explain how these shocking allegations of rape and murder against some of the country's most powerful men went unchecked for decades. What disturbs me, Christian, is the fact the government knew about it and they covered it up. Okay, so less than 24 hours after starting to inquire about this dossier presented to him by a senior Labor Party politician, the editor was confronted in his office by a furious member of Parliament who threatened him and demanded the documents. Okay, so the politicians did not want to be found out, and that's what I find pretty disturbing. Now, there was this character that was from the actual story on 60 Minutes, okay, Leon Britton. Okay, this is the really scary part. This was a very, very high-up person. He was literally Margaret Thatcher's Home Secretary.
Well, he must have been very, very high up. I mean, they named the whole country after him. It's fantastic.
Right. It's like being, called a butler like Jeeves. You know what you're going to do.
That's right.
So Britain, he was a protege of Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, and he'd actually been promoted at the age of 43 to that Home Secretary role, and it's making him the youngest person to preside over Britain's domestic law enforcement and national security apparatus since Winston Churchill. Now, Margaret Thatcher knew about the MPs being pedophiles and turned a blind eye, as the fallout could have destroyed people's faith in the government.
Right.
So
don't worry about the kids, as long as it's not a bad look for us. Just sweep it under the carpet.
That's exactly right. So this didn't change Thatcher's decision, right? Get this, to knight the guy. One of the pedophiles, she then went out and knighted him for his services as a councillor, mayor, and MP in Rochdale, Lancashire. So when I look at it, I'm like, this gives you a glimpse into exactly just how corrupt and how bizarre our governments are. Yet we put all of our faith in these people.
Now, if Tony Abbott then gives this bloke an Order of Australia or the Knighthood of Australia, then that would just be going too far. Nathan, although you never know with this government, Chinese... sorry, go ahead.
So, and then it goes further, where Bill Clinton now has been identified in a lawsuit against his former friend and pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein, who had regular orgies, get this, at his Caribbean compound that the former president visited multiple times. So Epstein got done, and he was having these island sex orgies with people underage, boys and girls, and Bill Clinton went there numerous times. They had 21 different phone numbers for the guy found on that particular island. So the former president was friends, right, with this Jeffrey Epstein, a financier, right? So it's through the banking system as well, who was arrested in 2008 for soliciting underage prostitutes. So a new lawsuit basically has come out and revealed how Clinton took multiple trips to Epstein's private island, where he kept young women as sex slaves. Okay, then it goes further. Then you've got this bombshell documentary about the Hollywood pedophile ring preying on child actors. I know we've heard this with Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, okay, that has been linked to the X-Men director Bryan Singer, which premiered in New York, but it only got one showing and it was never seen again. And then there's the sex slave abuse by the United Nations in Bosnia, Christian, right, where actual charges have been laid. So, what we've got here is people yelling for the child bribes about ISIS, right? They're all screaming and saying how bad ISIS is, but no one's looking at our own high-level elite people who have been convicted of doing these kind of crimes. And for me, that's really, really disturbing when we don't actually know just how corrupt our own Western governments are, yet we're very quick to start pointing the fingers at, other countries and bomb them and kill them. Yeah, I agree with you. And those allegations you mentioned with Bill Clinton, that makes the whole Monica Lewinsky thing look perfectly decent in retrospect. It makes sense, doesn't it? And to him, it was not even a big deal to lie about it, wasn't it? He was just kind of like, I had sex with that lady, because he's done so many bad things. That's like nothing. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Nathan, before we let you go, tell us about this Chinese man who's made his home look like a police station. This is not some hobby that you do on a Saturday afternoon. This takes a lot of thought, a lot of money, and a lot of hard work. But he's done it. He's done it, Nathan. It's genius, right? You've got this con artist in China who allegedly created a fake police station in his home as part of a scheme, and this is the best bit. It wasn't to do crazy things to people or feel important. He wanted to sell falsified documents to gullible victims. So the imposter was exposed by his disgruntled girlfriend. Gee, we've all had one of those, right? And the disgruntled girlfriend is a very powerful person in this world, I think. Yep. And she's basically tipped off the real officers of the law. Now, the man was named Lee. Okay, he accumulated a collection of clothing, handcuffs, stun weapons. His name was Lee. Gee, you don't have too many of them in China. Yeah, anyway. And he even had a siren for his personal car to emulate an inspector of the Chinese Public Security Bureau in Wuhan, as in the Wuhan clan. Yes. So you've got the real politicians doing all kinds of weird stuff and the law enforcement people, and here's he's just doing it to sell falsified documents. He's having a great time. I really like it. I think it's a great idea. There should be more of it, as long as there's not too much harm done. Hey, there are worse things going on, Nathan, surely. And you know what, Christian? There are worse things going on.
And you've mentioned a couple of them tonight, by the way. You know, who would you rather have? Lee from Wuhan and his crazy police station thing, or these sleazy politicians and royal family members who are brushing everything under the carpet, the disgusting things that are going on? Mate, give me Lee from Wuhan any day, mate.
Lee is the joy, isn't he?
He really is. The much-needed joy in all this misery. Nathan Bray, thank you. And just let me thank you also for everything you've done for the show over the last 5.5 years.
Mate, thank you, Christian. It was an absolute pleasure.